precursor to one of my all-time favorite Disney films, Midnight Madness. This came out just a year.
Welcome to the Video Store Geek Podcast, where your friendly neighborhood world film geek, Albert Valentine, talks about films made and released during the golden age of the VHS era.
Hey everyone, this is your friendly neighborhood world film geek, Albert Valentine. Welcome to the November 6th episode of the Video Store Geek Podcast, the bi-weekly podcast where I talk about older movies made or released during the home video golden age. Today we're going to talk about a film that's as old as me. We're going to talk about the 1979 comedy Scavenger Hunt, directed by Michael Schultz, and with an ensemble cast. This is the story of a game inventor who, after he dies, forces his relatives to split into 5 teams, while his relatives and home staff to split into 5 teams and go on a wild scavenger hunt throughout Los Angeles for his $200 million estate. This was the precursor to one of my all-time favorite Disney films, Midnight Madness. This came out just a year before. And a little bit of background on Michael Schultz, if you don't know who this guy is. He directed such great films as Car Wash in 1976, Which Way Is Up in 1977. He would go on to direct the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, to a disappointing bomb, unfortunately. But he bounced back, I believe, with this film. Somewhat, because as it does to this day, it has a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. But in the 80s, Michael Schultz would go on to direct one of the greatest cult classics of all time, and that's The Last Dragon. And then he would follow up with The Sorderlies and a few other films before delving into producing mainly and stuff like that. So we're going to get right into the film, give a little bit of background on it, and go from there. So the film begins with game designer Milton Parker playing a video game with his nurse. He's kind of in hospice, he's on his deathbed, and is played by the one and only Vincent Price. After losing the game to the nurse, he unfortunately succumbs to a heart attack and passes away. So, what's going to happen to his $200 million estate? Well, all the relatives show up. Some of them are good-natured, and of course we have the greedy sister, Mildred, played by Cloris Leachman, among others, as well as her shady lawyer, who has the freaking name that fits him, Stuart Selsom, played by Richard Benjamin. Now, it's going to warn you guys, there's going to be a lot of dicks in this movie. And I mean, when I say dicks, I don't mean that kind of. I mean, there's actually a couple of actors in this cast whose name just happens to be Richard. So, anyway, lawyer comes in and he makes the announcement that Milton had come up with one final game, and it involves all of them. Now, they're going to have to go on a wild scavenger hunt throughout Los Angeles to get a list of items. The first one to get the most items on their list by 5 or 6 p.m., I can't remember off the top of my head, will get the $200 million inheritance. So 5 teams are split up, and the teams are as follows. First, we have his widowed son-in-law, Henry Motley, played by Tony Randall, and his 4 children. The second is the home staff. They include Henri the cook, played by James Coco, the valet Jenkins, played by Roddy McDowell, the limo driver Jackson, played by Cleavon Little, and then the French maid Babette, played by Stephanie Faracy. The third one is a solo act, and that's the cab driver Marvin Dummett, played by Richard Mulligan. Dick. Excuse me. The fourth one includes Mildred, her son Georgie, played by Richard Masur, and then you have Stuart. And then finally, the last team is his nephews Kenny and Jeff, played respectively by a film debuting Willie Ames, Dirk Benedict, who later become face from the A-Team, and Mildred's good-natured stepdaughter Lisa, played by Maureen Teefy. So they are the 5 who go on the teams who are going to go on this wild goose chase throughout Los Angeles to pick up all these items, and then they have to eventually go back to the house, put the items in these big giant kind of like the little borders of the bounty houses type thing. I can't really explain what they are, on the front lawn, and then go back out and get many more items. So along the way, chaos is tends to it's definitely going to happen. A lot of things happen throughout the film, including a really funny slapstick gag between Georgie and Stewart when they try to get a safe out of his law office, and it ends up so disastrously. See, this is the stuff I miss. I miss this form of slapstick that happens in these films. I know that in comedy, we had slapstick humor. We had some funny jokes and all that, and then somewhere with American Pie, it all just started getting too, just raunchy. It's all about dirty jokes and gross out gags and all that. And I really love the slapstick humor style and the wisecracking characters. I that's what I kind of miss in today's comedy. We are starting to slowly get that back, but it's not as prevalent as it was back in the old days. And if you can agree with me on that, that's cool. If you don't, that's all good too. But there are some funny gags in this film, and they include one where the group has to get the teams have to get an ostrich from the zoo. And this leads to a hysterical running gag with the zookeeper, played by Avery Schreiber, as he thinks he got one ostrich and that ostrich would disappear. He would get another one and that one would disappear, and he starts naming. It's like he named the ostriches, and it's like he considers them his babies, which I totally get. And that's what makes this like really really funny to watch. This one particular stint. Then you have another scene where the group has to get a overweight guy in a checkered shirt, and this is where two guys come in predominantly. One is played by the late Stephen First, and he plays Merle, and the other one is Stuart Pankin, who plays Dwayne. Now, for those of you who are Midnight Madness fans like I am, Stephen First will go on to play Harold, the blue team leader in Midnight Madness. He's kind of like the antagonist of the whole schmear because his father is a rich boy, but his father always sees David Naughton's Adam as a better person. So there's that. There's a hilarious scene where Jeff and Kenny go to visit a friend of Jeff's named Arvilla Droll, played by Ruth Gordon. And for those of you who've seen Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, she's going to remind you of Mrs. Feldman. She's totally into military weaponry. So this Arvilla here is totally into military weaponry. She's a collector. She loves this stuff, and she helps them get one of the items they need, and then actually almost lets off a grenade at one point. It's just hysterical. There's another funny scene where Henry has to go get a medicine ball. He finds a local gym, and it's run by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has almost the Conan like hair in this, playing the gym's owner Lars, who's trying to convince Henry he does not need medicine. And he tries to, no, I need a medicine ball. And he's like, no, 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 you don't need medicine. You just need to work out. You need to pop up, get strong. I know, it's a really bad Arnold impersonation. I know. Just don't kill me for it, all right? But yeah, there's all these fun gags. There's also one where the hotel staff, the home Milton's staff, they try to grab it. They have to get like a gold-plated toilet, and that ends disastrously. But that's not even the worst of it. It's when they have to find a microscope that it just leads to one of the most funniest scenes, and I feel like this team is one of the most unluckiest because they're always getting wet in one way or another, like drenched in like water or something. And this scene where they're in the science lab is one of the most hysterical scenes I've watched. Like, this is the kind of comedy I totally miss, and it just goes about saying, this is just a fun film. This, like I said, this is a precursor to Midnight Madness, and I had so much fun watching this movie when I first saw it a couple months ago. On where else? Well, of course, I have to mention Tubi because that's where I saw this movie. But an interesting trivia note I got to mention here is Vincent Price's character Milton Parker, the game inventor who died. He is named after the two biggest game companies of that era, and that happens to be Milton Bradley and the Parker brothers. So I find that quite fascinating that in the terms of my last interview with Fright Night, that Peter Vincent was, a combination of Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. Here we have Milton Parker, who is a combination of Milton Bradley and Parker Brothers. So, if you used to go to you used to go to your toy stores and you see these video games, these board games, you'll see like Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers. And that's really cool that they actually did that. They came up with that concept. But filming took place mostly in San Diego, and like as I mentioned earlier, the film got a 75% Rotten Tomatoes. Um, Unfortunately, in the early days, critics didn't really like it, but it seems like nowadays it might be getting a um bit of a following. That's 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's silly. It's not like something you're gonna see like all the time, which I get. And as like I said, I've only seen it once, but I enjoyed it when I saw it. It could be a one and done. It could be, and honestly, if you like Midnight Madness and you want to do like a double feature, like a compliment, pick Scavenger Hunt. Do a Scavenger Hunt, then Midnight Madness, and you see how that there's similarities with the two films. I'd be all for that. I hope New Beverly Cinema is listening to this because maybe they'll do something with that. They should do something with that. Who knows? But yeah, definitely check out if you like Midnight Madness and you haven't seen Scavenger Hunt. Yeah, I recommend it. Try watching it once. You might end up liking it. There's a lot of slapstick gags, all around fun. The cast is great. I couldn't really I know she's playing the villain, but I couldn't really stand Cloris Leachman in this film. But I get it, but it's because of her character. It's not because of her. She's obviously a great actress. I mean, and that's the one thing I gotta keep stressing this. People who play villain actors, you know, the fan circles need to realize they're just actors. And in this, you're probably gonna hate Mildred Carruthers for her greediness and all that. But you can see out the other roles she does. It just shows what a terrific actress she was. And to this day, you thinking about that, you think about Game of Thrones, King Joffrey, Jack Leeson pretty much was forced in retirement because of all the backlash he got for playing this devious character, but that's not who the person is. So, you know, when it comes to villain actors, please guys, just remember it's just acting. They're not really that type of character. Now, I can't say that for everyone, but for certain actors, you can say that. And Cloris Leachman is one of those actors. You're really gonna hate it. You're also gonna hate Richard Benjamin in this movie because he's so slimy as Stuart Selson, the lawyer. Like he is so devious. There were times when I saw this movie, I wanted to actually do the Wonka Vision bit, drag him out of the TV set, and just like beat the living crap out of him at one point. But it was funny because him and Georgie have this constant bickering like a married couple dynamic with their scenes. And I feel like Georgie was actually, even though Georgie was kind of greedy as well and kind of an idiot who's like mama's little boy, he doesn't trust the lawyer, and that kind of makes sense, which led to the slapstick gag at the law office. And again, this is why you gotta see this movie. You got like these are some underrated gags that go, like slapstick gags that go on in this film, and that's the real reason to see this movie. It's not just for the cast, but also see it for these gags that go on, from the whole thing with the safe to the Ruth Gordon military nut to Arnold Schwarzenegger's hysterical gym owner, and the like I said, the science lab scene is probably one of the funniest scenes of the entire film, if not the funniest part. To see James Coco, Roddy McDowall, Cleavon Little, and Stephanie Faracy um, go through all this. And of course, Stephanie Faracy would go on to become a comic legend herself. She appeared in films like The Great Outdoors, Hocus Pocus. You'll know her as Max and Danny's mom from Hocus Pocus. This was an early role for her. And she's really funny in this as the French maid. And again, this is such a great film. You might, the team you're going to want to root for, in my personal opinion, um, it could be, I would boil it down to two. I would root for either Henry, Tony Randall's characters, because it's just him and the four kids, or you want to root for the nephews, Kenny and Jeff, and stepdaughter, Mildred's stepdaughter Lisa, because those two teams have the most. They're the most good-hearted out of the teams. They have really good intentions. I think Henry does it because he just wants to pay respects to his daughter, his wife, who was Milton's daughter, who passed away. So it's kind of, for him, it's like getting respect within the family. But as for Kenny and Jeff and Lisa, they really have good intentions. So I feel like you want to root for one of those two teams. I'm not going to tell you who wins. It was quite a surprise, but I will say once you see the film, you'll understand like how great it is, and you'll enjoy. I think you'll enjoy the comedy. Um, but again, Michael Schultz would go on to direct the awesome Last Dragon and Disorderlies, one of my favorite '80s films with the Fat Boys and Ralph Bellamy. If you don't remember that movie, that's a fun movie. I might eventually cover that on a future episode in 2026, because I pretty much have the December episodes locked in already. So I'm probably gonna have to, if I do Disorderlies, it will be in sometime in 2026. But I do have a kickoff for 2026 already in January. I won't reveal that yet. I'll wait till December to announce the beginning of the podcast in 2026, what films are going to be covered. But yeah, overall, I would give Scavenger Hunt a solid B plus. It's people might compare it to Midnight Madness, yet Midnight Madness was later, came out a year later. But I think they're gonna. If you love ensemble cast, you love slapstick, you like the films about scavenger, like crazy hunting throughout the city for various objects and seeing how goofy things can get or how chaotic. Yeah, this is one film that's gonna be right up your alley. So check this film out. And yes, it again, right now I believe it is on Tubi. If not, you could rent it or buy it on stuff like Amazon Prime, Plex, stuff like that. I'm checking it out right now to see where. Yeah, you can see it on Tubi. It's on Tubi and Plex right now. I will, and it does have a 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb. So yeah, once again, check out Scavenger Hunt. Okay, so with that said, we'll see you again on November 20th for our next episode. And this is your friendly neighborhood world film geek, Albert Valentin. And until then, stay awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Video Store Geek Podcast. Don't forget to check out worldfilmgeek.com for the latest reviews, interviews, and news in the world of indie and global cinema. And see you on the next episode of the podcast. Stay awesome, film geeks.